Hey there, welcome to a new series from Living in Tin, the Airstream Chronicles and RLC design. It's simply called Full Time, and it's a series that will be covering full-time RVers from all walks of life. Now, when we think of full-time RV living, often we think, hey, our grandparents or our parents retiring and setting off for a snowbird lifestyle, driving down to Florida during the winter and driving back up to New England during the summer. At least that's what I've always thought of full-timers. But I stopped thinking that in 2006 when I myself became a full-time RVer and actually a full-time Airstreamer. Now, my journey didn't start with a retirement and fond farewell to family and friends while I roamed the country. Instead, my journey began in 2006 when I was 34 years old, and I set off across the country in a 25-foot Airstream Safari. Now, my reasons weren't the same fun reasons that a lot of people set off and become full-timers. Instead, I had had a major life-changing event, actually a couple of them, and in response to those life changes, I decided to do something completely different. I decided to hook up my Airstream, travel across the country, and find a new place to be. In talking with friends and family about it, I often thought of myself as a reluctant full-timer. I wasn't intending to set off on a multi-year journey and a multi-year living full-time in a small little space like a 25-foot Airstream. But over time, things evolved, and I became a willing full-time Airstreamer. Now in this series, we're going to meet RVers from all walks of life. There's a phenomena going on where a lot of young people are now taking to the road and working from the road, and that's been enabled by the information technology boom of the past few decades, where people can work remote and from almost anywhere. And so these full-time RVers are choosing to live a life a little different, and we'll be meeting some of the families and individuals over time that have made their lives into full-time RVer lifestyles. We're also going to meet the standard class of full-time RVers, older retired individuals and couples who, upon their retirement, have sold their homes, packed up their things, and gotten themselves into small to large RVs, and they roam around the country. And we're also going to meet full-time RVers who are actually full-time because of financial circumstances and today's economy. Not all full-time RVers are out there on the road visiting and touring. For some people, this lifestyle is the most affordable way that they can deal with today's economy. So we're going to be covering all of the bases here on Full Time. And some of the stories are going to be very interesting and very exciting and a lot of travel. And other stories might be a little surprising for folks who aren't full-time RVers. So with that said, we're going to start out with the story of my own journey, the creation of the Airstream Chronicles, and what I do now to make a living. Is I'm currently 43 years old. I'm not retired, and so I'm still a full-time RVer, but I'm also a member of today's workforce as well. So we're going to flip over now, away from the introduction to the series, and we're going to jump into the series with my own story, and we're going to talk about, nearly a decade of full-time Airstream living. Hi there, and thanks for hanging in after the introduction to Full Time. As I said in the introduction, I'm Rich Charpentier, and I am the site host for the AirstreamChronicles.com, for LivingInTin.com, RichCharpentier.com, which is my portfolios and images from the years, And finally, RLC Design, which is actually my business that I run out of my Airstream here. So let's get into my full-time story. We're not going to, cover from '06 all the way to 2015 every little detail, but we're going to talk about a few things that people might be interested in regarding full-time RVing. In my case, I started out in 2006 as a full-time RVer in response to some changes that happened in my life. So in March of 2006, I moved from my 2,000 plus square foot home into my less than 200 square foot Airstream. And in May of 2006, I actually started traveling across the country. And I hit a lot of states in that first year. Went to several Airstream rallies, met a lot of great Airstreamers and other RVers along the way. At the time, I was actually a little sick, more than a little sick, and that illness pervaded my life from 2005 till 2010 when it was finally properly resolved. And during that entire time, I was full-time in my Airstream, so I was a full-time RVer. One of the things I should point out to folks as you're watching this, full-time RVing doesn't mean that you're on the road 7 days a week. As a matter of fact, in 2007, after visiting with some other Airstream friends in the California desert in Borrego Springs, I accidentally got misrouted by my GPS. I was traveling onwards to Colorado from California, and I plugged in shortest distance into my GPS instead of fastest time, and I found myself driving up Route 89 into Prescott, Arizona, and I shouldn't have been driving up that road. My Airstream and my truck were too long for it. There's a couple scary hairpin turns, but I landed in an absolutely beautiful town. So I went from being terrified driving up a really scary road that I shouldn't have been on, and instead pulling into a gorgeous town, Prescott, Arizona, where I full-timed in my Airstream from 2007 all the way to 2012. And during that time, I was still a full-time RVer because I lived in my little Airstream. I didn't buy a house, I didn't pick up an apartment, and I found myself working in a completely new industry and as a co-owner of a gallery. So during that entire experience, yeah, I was still a full-time RVer. You don't have to be hitched up and towing all over the place. And down the road, as we're doing other stories with people, you're going to find a lot of people who are full-time RVers who parked themselves in one place and stayed there. So they made it their home, but they're still living full-time in basically a very tiny space, which should also be interesting to people who are into the whole tiny house movement. I think RVers and folks living in small park models and things, they're the first tiny house movement people. In the case of my space, I've got a 25-foot by 8-foot wide Airstream. There are cabinets, there are counters, there are closets, so really my operating space is well below 200 square feet. You can travel all the time, or you can find a great place like where I'm at now in the Granite Dells in Prescott, Arizona, and make that your home. In my case now, after full-timing for so long, I'm traveling more again, and you've probably seen that if you follow along with our blog or any of our other websites. RLC Design has come to be because of my full-time adventures. In traveling several years ago in New England, I had a hard time finding good campgrounds, pulling things up on my phone. My latest Garmin GPS does a terrible job at finding RV parks and campgrounds, and I was having a difficult time Googling for things, so I decided, given all my personal experience full-time RVing and traveling, that we could bring something to the market for small and mid-sized RV parks all the way up to RV resorts in helping them get found on the internet and reaching today's more mobile technological crowd. So the full timing in the Airstream actually evolved into a new lifestyle for myself. I work from this Airstream. I live in this Airstream. You know, all of my meals are 9 times out of 10 done in the Airstream. This is where I sleep at the end of the day, and this is where I work at the start of the day. And you just saw me waving because one of my neighbors went by, so excuse that, but that's part of the full-time RVing as well. One of the interesting things I've found over the years as a full-time RVer, there's a very interesting community. As I said earlier, when I lived in New Hampshire, I had this beautiful house in the woods, 5.5 acres, even had a small marsh/pond down at the bottom of it, and my neighbors were spaced way apart, and I really didn't get to know any of them. We didn't visit much. One of the most interesting things that I've found in full-time RVing from 2006 to 2015 is all the people that I've gotten to meet. Now, where I'm parked currently is actually a shorter patch of land than my driveway was back at home. And while I don't feel too cramped in or anything, you know, I've got a neighbor right over here, I've got a neighbor on the other side, but we still have a good amount of space and privacy. It has been so amazing, the people I've met from 2006 to 2015. And where I lived in New Hampshire and the purposeful isolation of some of the homes there, you don't really get to meet the people around you, and you don't get a constant flow of new people. As I've traveled cross country multiple times and met people here in Point of Rocks and met people throughout Arizona and all of the other states, I've gotten some really cool stories and gotten to meet some amazing people that parking my butt back in my really private home in New Hampshire, I never would have gotten to meet. So there's one of the positive parts of full-time RVing. So now you might be wondering, so how do you do this? Well, in my case, I've been working in tech since 1995. And part of that working in tech, when the internet first became the internet, I was actually studying economics. But I built the first website ever for the economics department of University of New Hampshire. And while I never wanted to be a full-time web designer, I did branch out into network engineering over the years. And everything has come full circle. During my experience full-timing, we've done a lot of professional photography work, and I have combined that work with my technological expertise and built it into a company that allows me to travel to different states, travel to different parks, and work with RV parks and other amazing destination locations hand in hand. So now I actually take the Airstream to these locations, work with my clients, work from the Airstream, and then I get to move on to the next client site and do my job while I'm also traveling and seeing new places. So it's a pretty cool combo. But one of the things you won't see is what you're seeing right now, me sitting outside of the Airstream all the time. What you will see is me normally for hours a day sitting in my Airstream at my new custom desk, which has made a world of difference to my workflow. But yeah, mostly you're going to find me inside. You're going to find me working on a client's website. You're going to find me editing videos. You're going to find me editing photos. And I'm not outside all the time enjoying the beautiful rocks and things because I still work full-time. I'm not retired. And all of that fun medical stuff back in 2006 really took a chunk out of the old budget there. So I still have to work. I'm not retired, but I've found a way to actually combine my interests in travel and my technical expertise in information technology, putting them together, and the Airstream is actually my vehicle that allows me to do that. Being a full-time RVer doesn't mean that you get away from everything. I mean, the reality is, as I said before in a different segment, for me, I'm still working, and there are still the realities of life, even as a full-time RVer, which is, there are still bills to pay, there's still work to be done, and there's still maintenance and upkeep. I mean, think about it. While I'm in a very small space, it's also a small portable space. So what that means, driving down the road, towing the Airstream all over the country with my truck, things come up. Right now I'm sitting outside. It's a beautiful Arizona day. It's in the high 90s right now. So we're not doing any of the filming today inside the Airstream because my air conditioner is grinding away trying to keep the Airstream interior cool. And just a few weeks ago, while we were on a job site down in Queen Valley, Arizona, by the way, 106 degrees for several days, my refrigerator went out. It completely had a meltdown. It was an 11-year-old refrigerator, and I've been using it since 2006. It has had very little time being turned off. So I'm not surprised appliances do break down at some point in time. But in RVs, the appliances are a little different. It's not like going and getting a home refrigerator. In this case, my refrigerator works on AC, alternating current, so your standard power supply. And it also works with my propane system, so when I'm on battery power, the fridge can flip over to the propane and continue to keep things cool if I'm out boondocking and enjoying an off-grid camping experience. So when that fridge went out, that was a $2,054 bill plus a $200 diagnosis. So we're looking at almost $2,300 in expenses. Just 1 month ago, my 2004 Nissan Titan needed to have both rear axles replaced, so there's a $1,600 expense. So, while full-time RVing can be a cheaper way to live in some respects, there are still things that come up, and so the realities of life are just going to crop up on you. And, it's not a bad thing. It's just something to be prepared if you're interested in becoming a full-time RVer. Full-time RVing also has its own set of costs. And for the folks who travel a lot more, I would think that there are even more costs. But don't think for a minute that full-time RVing means I'm tanking up my gas tank every day. Because when I go visit places, I do stay for extended periods of time. If I enjoy a place, I will stay there for a while. Such places as Santa Fe, New Mexico, Victor, Idaho, Cortez, Colorado, Prescott, Arizona, Borrego Springs, California. These are all favorite places of mine. So my Airstream does get on the road regularly, and with the work that I'm doing now, we're finding ourselves on the road more often. But when we're done with our trips and travels, you do need some type of home base, so my Airstream returns to Prescott, Arizona. This is a hotter time of year right now, so the realities of full-time RVing are a little tougher. My air conditioner can only do so good against 106-degree temperatures. That's why I picked Prescott, because it's over 5,000 feet in elevation, so the summers don't get as hot, and the winters you still get to see a little bit of the four seasons. You don't get real snow or anything. There are some definite realities of full-time RVing that are just like regular living, be it an apartment or be it a home that you have in the city or a home in the mountains. Expenses always crop up, and that's just part of it. But I think probably one of the neatest things here is that wherever I go, my home is always with me. And when I'm traveling between client jobs and I pull over to take a break from driving, I can jump back into my Airstream and have lunch or dinner, and yeah, home's always with you. So that's a positive of full-time RVing for me.